Hello everyone. I thought I'd make a video about basically so you want a large telescope? I've heard many people say, man, I would love to have a telescope like what you have. And I'm going to tell you right now, oh yes, this thing's a beauty to look through. But there are some things on where if you are considering buying something like this, a 10-inch telescope, for example, this Apertura 8010 is a good example. There's some things you're going to want to know. So, first off, the biggest thing that you might want to consider is size. First and foremost, dimensions. Okay, first and foremost, you're gonna want to get this thing out the door, right? And then, depending on where you are, you might actually be interested in taking it places. Can your car or can your car, truck, whatever you use, can it take this? Right? So you're going to want to take notes of when you're shopping, take notes of the base diameter, the tube length. For example, this tube is 4 feet long, right? And that's a pretty long tube. And this portion here is about 25 inches tall from down here to up here. Now, granted, you could probably take this apart and, put it in the back seat of your car or something like that. But this is going to be a little bit more of a challenge to deal with. This actually fits nicely in the back seat of my Flex, going all the way across. And I haven't tried this out just yet, but I think it can actually go in the third row area, going all the way down the length of the third row portion, with it being folded down. So that might be a way on how you can actually transport something like this. But you don't want to get something that you can't handle, right? And that brings me to a second point, closely related to that, or closely related to the size, is the weight. This thing, in all, is about 50 pounds, a little bit more than that. And so that is kind of heavy for a lot of people. It's not too bad, but I will have to say though that for some people such as me who aren't really exactly able to handle very heavy weights easily, I am by no means a weightlifter or anything like that. Probably about 60 pounds is about how much I can comfortably handle for short distances. But because of the fact that I observe about 20, or not 20, 200 feet from my house all the way to the back corner of our lot, I need a little bit more consideration of how I'm going to handle this. So what I do is, for example, this is a Dobsonian, so it's a little bit easier to deal with than some other telescopes, is you can take the base, whereas you can take the tube right off the base. And then when assembling it, place it right back down. And that makes it pretty simple because this thing breaks down into two parts, right? You've got the base here, and you've got this here. The base is like about 35 pounds, while this is about 32 pounds. So it's a decently heavy piece of equipment. And you'll want to take note that the larger you go, even with the smaller addition of diameter, or what they call aperture on these things, this is a 10-inch, which means that the mirror back here, not the tube is different, but the diameter of the mirror down here is 10 inches. This tube in and of itself is a 12-inch diameter. So a 12-inch tube or a 12-inch aperture may give you a 14-inch diameter tube. A 16-inch may give you a anywhere between 18 to 20 inch wide tube. And of course, that means that it's going to be like this, right? So, but with that, with the increased size, that weight adds up real quick. And so, an 8-inch thing might be about, I think the 8-inch version of this is about 35 pounds total. It ain't that bad. And then this whole thing is about 50 pounds. If I got the 8012, that I believe is around 65, something like that, pounds, 65, 70 pounds total. So you're going to need something to carry it around with. And that comes, and something like this comes in handy. That's what you're going to want to use. Number 3 is be prepared for plenty of sleepless nights. I have spent many nights with this thing out all night looking through this, right? And it's just amazing to be able to look through this. You don't get tired, right, looking through the eyepiece. I will tell you that much right now. So, and then there's another difficulty, though, too, that is something that you may need to consider when you are going to be viewing, is that you need to plan ahead, right? The larger the scope, the longer you have to let it, what's called acclimate. So the acclimation, if you have ever done home improvement stuff, you know about flooring, that you have to put it in the house about 2 weeks. You have to set the planks, in the house, not set them down on the floor, right? Not lay them all out, but you have to place them in the house about 2 weeks ahead of time. Now, thankfully, you don't have to put this thing 2 weeks ahead of time, outside, but you do have to put it out, I would say, around an hour ahead of time. Hour, 2 hours, right? And so that involves that you're going to have to know what the weather's going to be like in the next couple of hours, right? And that means planning ahead. So with that in mind, that's going to be something that you really got to look for. Another thing is that a lot of these things come with, well, some, such as this one, come with a fan that's actually built into the back. So that helps reduce the time on that. But with that in mind, I think I'm beginning to run out of time on here. But I think I'll make a quick thing that might be a little bit more difficult for a lot of people starting the hobby. Is that if you've ever noticed these knobs here, these are for aligning the mirrors. If you don't align the mirrors, or what they call collimate the telescope, is that eventually, over time, you're not going to see very well out of this, right? And with that, things are going to be all blurry and not sharp, even for a big telescope like this. And so you have to pretty much on a consistent basis check the collimation. And in order to check the collimation, at least on this one, you loosen these white things and you play around with these black things until you have the mirror lined up with the mirror that's up front. So with that, you're also going to notice that the inside of this telescope is very black. So, and that brings me to the next point. You are going to want to make sure you provide a little bit of upgrade. So you want to put in more money into this. And that is very, very, very important, because of the fact that if you don't, you're not going to get the best out of your telescope.